I grew up, we lived in Edina and went to Washburn High School. All my friends who were older than I was, 18, 19 and all, got into the service. They enlisted in the service. Everybody was trying to avoid going into the Army, and particularly the infantry. So most of my friends went into the Air Corps or the Navy as such. There was enough in the news those days about ships going down and torpedoes in the Atlantic and all that. I decided I'd take my chance on the Army. And I went out to Fort Snelling a week after I became 18 and passed, okay. I was sent down to Texas and went through the boot camp that everybody goes through, 3 months as such. There were 11 of us picked out of the group and sent to college on the Army's college program. And I went to Starkville, Mississippi. So I went to college for the first time and learned how to fly an airplane. The goal was to try to find people to replace the pilots who had been killed.
Gene was a member of what Tom Brokaw called the greatest generation. The term wasn't used just to identify a single American body of people. What Brokaw said was, after I had been to Normandy for the second time, quote, I understood that this generation of Americans were truly meaningful to history. The generation is, I believe, the greatest generation any society has ever produced.
We went overseas in the summer of 1944. And we were scheduled to go to England, but there were, as part of the convoy and all, there were ships that had been torpedoed. We were not part of that, but part of the convoy was destroyed. And we were sent, we ended up in France. It was diverted to France, as I recall.
During this part of your service, had you heard about the Nazi work camps, the Nazi concentration camps?
No, not at all.
When did you first hear about that?
We came across a camp. We were in Germany. We'd crossed the Rhine and fought through Normandy, and we came across a camp called Erfurt, Germany. This is the camp that is part of World War II history, because at the camp was Eisenhower and General Bradley and General Patton, and so they saw for the first time the camps. And then later, when we pushed deep into Germany and into Austria, and to the town of Linz, which is a large town below Vienna, on the Danube, was the major Austrian camp, Mauthausen, which was a mother camp that was separating the families, and the men able to work and all were put into a quarry and haul rocks till they died. We were there as part of the liberating armored group.
Did you enter Mauthausen itself?
Oh yeah. The platoon sergeant said, your job is to keep order, and what keep order meant was be compassionate, help as best you could those who were dying, but under no circumstances feed them, because they were so malnourished and far gone that food would have killed them, that said the doctors. And so we had the food in reserve. We actually helped set up a field hospital there, but the prisoners had been stacked up there because they had been driven, in some cases, out of Germany, of the German camps and other camps, and dumped in this place in Mauthausen. Some of the SS guards spoke English, but that's another story, yeah.
Did they surrender to you?
No, they, some did, and the prisoners took some of the SS, and they were torn apart. But most of the SS, including the camp commandant, morphed into the society of Linz and of that part of Austria. They changed uniforms and went into suits and all. So after I spent a year in Austria in the occupation, and the first part of that was spent with pictures of the guards and all, and we went from village to village and house to house to Garden and all, looking to see if we could find these, and did find quite a few. So after the war, we're in Linz and we're living in a school. And they reconditioned the school so that it's, you know, got a basement with pool tables and a bar and all. And we, food is beginning to flow. I mean, we're eating fairly well then, or, you know, army food, but it's, well. And but we're short of meat. And so we hear that at Mauthausen, in the quarry, down at the bottom of the granite steps and all, a bunch of deer have come in. And so we hear about this, and I wasn't part of it, but they went out there and they shot some deer, and they brought the deer back. And the venison dinner was put together, and it was a banquet. It was well done, and we had a splendid cook, a real chef, German or Austrian, and it was great. I mean, we had wine and meat, and then we find out the cook was a guard at Mauthausen. Come back in, you know, I suppose continued his trade, which is to be a restaurateur, chef, you know. So, how do you figure? Yeah.
Were there other camps that you also experienced?
No. We had been part of the liberating group at this Erfurt ahead of time, where the generals were, but we didn't stay. We didn't linger. It wasn't a part of our life. But Mauthausen, I don't know if I could have taken more than that one experience. It was interesting. 8 of us got together and had reunions. Most of the men of our squad, most of the men from Massachusetts and Appalachia, and one from Minnesota. And we would go once a year and talk. And we would talk about what life was like, and kids going to college, and these kind of things. And we would always, in the 2 days of the weekend, come back to talking about Mauthausen. And so it had clearly shaped our life. And there's got to be an alternative to this, you know, grisly way of doing things. Yeah.
When you first came home, did you share your wartime experiences, the atrocities that you witnessed, and the reactions of the general populace? Did you share that with your family?
No. I told my dad the details of what had happened to my friends, because I had written about them, and so I brought him up to date on that. But that was the extent of it, yeah.
What message would you like to leave today, reflecting on your experiences, talking about those experiences, and sharing with us the atrocities, the victims, the reactions of the general public?
I think what Tom said is what I've. I mean, that's the motto. Nazism is human rights out of control. It's the very end. But it can occur when you designate others than yourself. When you carry through anything which disparages people simply because of their religion, their looks, their marriage, their work style. So you gotta, I feel very strongly, you gotta keep right at it. And there are many ways that you can do that. To this day, certainly.
Is it possible for us as a community to forgive?
Well, that's a must, and it may be among the most difficult of life's jobs. But then, how do we account for Mandela? I think back to the '60s when the north side of Minneapolis was on fire. And that looked like it was irreconcilable, and when those things occur, up pop the blamers and the finger pointers and everything else. And then all of a sudden we get someone like Martin Luther King. So forgiveness is conceivable on this earth, I mean, yeah.
And we should not forget that in this community, it was Gene Sylvestre who, as a consultant, with your experience in the community relations business and the advertising and public relations business, you brought those skills to communities surrounding North Minneapolis, to the village of Golden Valley, and in fact to Edina, when you offered your services as a consultant to these various communities. Why don't you tell us something about that?
Well, that's the way it works. If you can find a government or a coalition of congregations of like-minded people, it's possible. In Edina, I was interested in it because I came from here, and the commission was a creature of not just the city council, but the public schools and the community ed. And when we would do workshops here on human rights and human relations, among the speakers was the chief of police. You go where you're welcome with what you feel strongly about, and it is not a surprise to me anymore that there are always people out there who are undereducated, perhaps. They never thought about this before. But when you show something that makes common sense and brings, I mean, the word community is bandied about these days, but a community is simply people who kind of agree to talk to each other and work together. And we see that when we have difficulties in a community, yeah.
Having had the opportunity to have this conversation, I can certainly share in Tom Brokaw's conclusion that you were a member of the greatest generation. That these experiences, painful, difficult, we are so appreciative today that you have chosen to share them with us. We honor your decision to do so, and we thank you very much for your time today.
Yeah, you're welcome.